Well, hello, everyone, and let's get started. I'm super excited for everyone to join us. Thanks for the speakers and the attendees, and of course, the organizers. And good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thanks to those like Jason who joined us late. We appreciate it, as well as some early birds. And welcome everyone to Conversational Collective. This is an open, inclusive meetup dedicated to exploring, learning, and creating conversational technology. I'm your host, Olivera Bay, and I'm glad you have all decided to join us today. We have an awesome lineup today. And for the first time in this group, we chose to cover the role of conversation design in the metaverse. While still in their infancy, the Metaverse and Web3 are quickly growing beyond buzzwords, with major brands announcing partnerships and investments on a daily basis. Conversational AI is expected to play a pivotal role in creating the virtual characters and assistants that will inhabit these digital experiences. In this event, we'll discuss the proper terms and definitions for these new spaces, the metaverse use cases that will require conversation design, as well as how can conversation designers get involved today. And before we move on, just a big thank you to all the Convo Collective organizers. This is a labor of love, completely volunteer-based. So the people on the screen deserve a big shout out, like Bishma, Matt, Lauren, Meg, Sarah, Ifioma, Hennifer, Brittany, maybe even myself. Thank you everyone to putting on this each and every month. And if you or your company might be interested in becoming a sponsor, please do reach out to us on the Twitter DM. Our handle is Convo Collective. And if this may be your first time joining us and you're not a member yet, please make sure you sign up to officially join the Conversational Collective. We'll also repost this in the chat, so be on the lookout. And when you sign up on our community forum, you'll get access to our Slack and LinkedIn groups. Super helpful if you're looking for a new job in this space, hiring, or just want to learn what other members are reading and learning about in conversational AI. And we also have our community forum, which will give you access to the Convo Collective newsletter, where you'll get non-spammy emails reminding you about all of our events and links to other resources and news, hand curated by our lovely organizers. You can also follow us on Eventbrite, where we post all of our events. And alrighty, folks, we're almost done with the shameless plugging. So if you haven't already done, please introduce yourself in the Zoom chat. During this entire event, you'll be on mute while we have our panel discussion. So please do type out your questions and make sure it's addressed to everyone and not a DM. We'll get to it as soon as we can. And this is our agenda for today. We don't have some really interesting we do have pre-selected questions and topics from those of you who left questions during registration. We'll try to get to majority of them. And let's get started by everyone taking a quick minute to introduce themselves and how they got into the field of conversation design, as well as the metaverse. Starting with you, Jason. Oh, I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Gilbert. Thank you so much, the Conversational Collective, for inviting me to speak at this amazing event with Shamala and Brandon. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am the character designer and conversation designer for LEQ from Intuition Robotics. LEQ is a robot for aging adults in the US. And what I do is I craft the experiences, the conversations, and the flows for the robot. And I come from the world of filmmaking. I'm sort of a film school graduate that never made it as a filmmaker and somehow found conversational AI and never looked back. So I am very happy to be here, and I'm very excited about the metaverse. And yeah, that's about it for me, Olivera.
Right on. Love the meta mustache. Okay, and over to Brandon.
Hey, thank you for having me. Really great topic, and it's interesting. My conversational AI, like conversation design journey, just merged into the metaverse as the metaverse came along. I'm the founder of Skilled Creative, which is a voice agency. We've been around for about 6 years. And so I got inspired by conversational AI in 2016 when I went to just kind of like a workshop that Amazon put on in New York. And it was introducing Alexa to people. And I went into that room and I left out with my brain completely melted and saying, wow, this is going to really change things. And so kind of started digging in at that point, and then started the agency in 2017. And we've just been off and running, building out voice programs for brands. So we work with Fortune 500 brands to help them figure out what voice is and help them build marketing campaigns, commerce campaigns. And then as the metaverse started bubbling up, we can talk about what that is or what that isn't. Conversational AI just seemed like a natural user interface for it. And then in the beginning of this year, Skilled got acquired into a holding company that's called Journey. So I'm now one of the co-founders of Journey. And within Journey is a metaverse agency led by a woman named Kathy Hackle, who is known as the godmother of the metaverse. And so she's now my business partner in this holding company. And we're just like brainstorming all day about how does conversational AI influence the metaverse and wayfinding, and we'll dig into it. But it's an exciting time for that convergence for sure. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. And Shamila.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Shamla Priyaga, and wow, it's been an interesting journey. I think more than 8 years now. So my journey started when I joined Amazon in 2012, and I was part of a hackathon. So very excited about doing things like hackathon and bringing ideas and stuff like that. So Amazon was still looking at how to enable more online shopping for customers. So one of the ideas which came to my mind was augmented reality, because the problem I identified was people don't want to buy things without trying. Especially, I want to try how my hair color would look on me before I just purchase it, or maybe the glasses or things like that. So certain products people just don't want to buy, although we have the convenience of returning it back. So that's when the idea of augmented reality came to my mind, and I was looking at how we can have something where I can virtually try out things before buying. And that's when the idea of like, how do I interact with that interface came to my mind, and the whole idea of enabling voice and leveraging gestures and voice and everything together came. So I prototyped something real quick for the hackathon, which was well received, and that's how my journey with the voice started. So was part of the Alexa launch, the Gen 1 and Gen 2. And after that, worked with VoiceBox Technologies, where I was part of creating virtual assistant and also enabling the backend technologies, the ASR, TTS, and NLP. And after that, joined Ford Company, worked there for 6 years, worked in the autonomous voice assistant space, and now with NVIDIA, working on the core AI technologies or speech AI technologies. So yeah, that's about it.
That's great. I love hearing about all three of your journeys. And thanks again for joining us. And I also want to introduce Clint McLean, who's co-hosting, and I will end it with myself. So go ahead, Clint, and tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Thanks, Olivera. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. My name is Clint McLean. I'm the Senior Conversation Designer at InWorld AI. And also in my free time, I like to design games for Amazon Alexa and Web3 platforms. Happy to have you all here today. Olivera?
Thanks, Clint. Welcome to the Conversational Collective and for helping to co-host. And my name is Olivera. As you already know, I'm a voice UX designer at Cerence, which is focused on automotive AI. Previously, I was with Master of Code working on chatbot design in various industries. And I've been with the Conversational Collective for about a year now, and really excited to put on this event just as something new and learn more from everyone here. And with that being said, what I'll do is I'll lay out the agenda for today in terms of what we're trying to achieve and the framework. We want to first have the proper terms and definition for what is the metaverse space and conversation design. And then just as a foundation, because some people don't know about either, so we don't want to make any assumptions, because some of us are already working in that space. So I would love to hear about each of you, and this is we're just going to get through it quickly, just so we can continue on and make sure all the questions from the attendees are answers and so on. So if you could each give me, a quick synopsis, what you think conversation design and metaverse is, that would be great. And then we'll move on to the next points. Thank you. With Shamila going first.
Okay, I love that. So yeah, metaverse in my mind is, 2012, when I was already thinking about something like augmented reality with voice and the gestures and all, I was already thinking about metaverse back then, right? But then my mind, it's basically like, enabling the 3D avatars, enabling more and more use cases like retail or gaming, where my avatar can interact. I don't have to go shopping. My avatar can do everything. That's where the whole core of, conversation design.
Oh, did we?
Oh,
The meta.
I think we lost her in the metaverse. Yeah, Brandon. Well, I'll help her.
Just when I was talking. Just when I was talking.
Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay, she's back.
Yeah. So just when I was talking, my internet decided to kick me out. So I was saying, like, metaverse is all about how we can create a replica of ourselves, which can virtually interact with the core technologies or core experiences. So, for example, shopping, right? Or retail or gaming. So instead of selecting a character, I can become the character. I can be in that game and I can interact with other people. That way the core of conversation will become more and more important, because it's all about dialogues and system, but not only the dialogues and system, but it will be more than that. So in my mind, conversation design is a blend with metaverse. Without conversation design, metaverse will not exist on its own.
Right on. And from here, what would you like to add, Jason?
Oh, wow, that was great, Shamala. I don't have much to add. It's basically the way I see it is the metaverse is this network of 3D. Just you're an avatar and you can connect with other avatars in a social way. I mean, that to me is at the very, very basic level what the metaverse is, and what we'll be doing as conversation designers. We'll be creating. There's a ton of use cases that we can explore in the metaverse. I'm sure Brandon and Clint will have much more to say about these things, but gaming, creating non-playing characters that have personalities and can expand. But it's not just gaming. It's I work with LEQ, and she's a companion for older adults. Think about companionship in the metaverse. Think about people that are isolated and alone. They can just suit up with their 3D, with their Oculus Quest or whatever it is will be in the future, and they can connect with other people without even if they're stuck at home. So I think this at its heart, it's an amazing technology that will liberate us and make us much more social. In the very short term, I think it can be defined as Mark Zuckerberg's ultimate demise. So that and legs.
Great. Brandon, anything to add to that?
Yeah. We'll see what happens with Mark Zuckerberg. It's interesting character for sure. But I think I refuse to define the metaverse today. And I think like the metaverse today is really good marketing. Essentially, it's a lot of really exciting technologies and platforms and channels, that some of which were already on the way for the last decade, and some of which have kind of spurred up in the last 12, 18 months. And we've just kind of put them all under the metaverse umbrella. And so if you talk to someone and they say, I can tell you the exact definition of the metaverse, and anything outside of this scope, they're wrong. Well, that person is like a metaverse zealot. And it's being defined right now. So it's this kind of like big tent that has all of these cool technologies in it that include gaming platforms, and they include virtual worlds, and they include avatars, and they include AI creative tools like Midjourney, and they include GPT-3, and it includes conversational AI, and it's being fleshed out. So for me, I think of it more broadly as a whole basket of evolving technologies that, depending on which circle you're in, you might call it the metaverse, you might just call it a bunch of cool technologies. And my view is, Amazon and Google gave us these voice channels. Those are channels of exclusively voice that we can activate. Outside of that, voice is a user interface. Similar to how you wouldn't invent the internet or a video game or a virtual world and say, well, we don't have to worry about the graphic interface. So there's going to be a conversational interface to all of these new technologies. And that's, to me, the role of conversational AI in the metaverse, is wayfinding and interactions, and anywhere that you can use your voice to control those environments or those technologies. That's where we'll be building that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really well said, Brandon. So Jason, Shamila, if you can add on to that, what are some of the more specific conversational AI, conversation design kind of use cases that you see, being helpful within the metaverse and Web3?
Yeah, I was reading it up somewhere, and customer care came up pretty prominently, right? So right now, the whole experience of interacting with a customer care agent, or uh, helping out the customer, that realm is where conversational AI is picking up. We are seeing call centers where voice assistants are being used a lot, right? Now imagine, like, instead of just that very dry conversation with an IPR, like press one, press two, and all of these things, if the entire experience could be in metaverse, where my avatar is talking with some other avatar and trying to help out and sort. So that's where I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to enhance the user experience in that metaverse world. But in addition to that, like retail, like sitting at the comfort of my house, I'm able to do the shopping, like sending my avatar to do the shopping in this metaverse world. But at the same time, like want to do negotiations or whatever. So the experience which we used to get before the online shopping world took place, where I used to go to the stores, or I used to go to these shopping centers where I can talk to the and not before the mall, like not the mall age, but even before that, like back in India, we used to have these shopping centers where you'll go and you'll negotiate with these shopkeepers, and then there's so much interaction happening. You can try things out and all of that kind of things. So I feel that's also one place where retail will definitely benefit a lot with this use case. And the third, like I mentioned, is gaming, right? This reminds me of one of the movies I watched where the characters themselves are in the gaming world, and now they are not able to come back. I forgot the movie name, but that's how, I feel that
Jumanji.
there are very, very low hanging Jumanji. Yeah, you got it right. So things like that, I definitely feel there's a lot of opportunities in that space. So there's already things we are doing in the gaming industry where you can select a character and you can interact with them. But this will go to the next level. So there's opportunity to enhance the user experience, the customer experience, help them out, and help them with their and all of these kind of things, which will pick up. The next wave, which is very, very important, is the autonomous cars are coming, right? And I worked in that space for 5 years. So of course, having an avatar in the car which is able to interact. I can design my own avatar, like the way I want my assistant to be. That will also come up because people will be interacting with these autonomous vehicles and will be using them a lot in the coming future. And all of these things will come together, and conversation design is the backbone for all of this.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a lot of technologies are kind of converging right now. Completely agree. Jason, your thoughts?
That's amazing. I totally agree. Both Brandon and Shamala, those are great use cases. And if I look at the car use case, which you brought up, Shamala, I think this is an amazing use case for the metaverse. And like, what is this agent in the car? Is it a self-driving car? Is it driving it for us, or is it something that's entertaining us or keeping us company while we're driving? What is this OS in the car? And what is conversation design? I know we've tried to define the metaverse, but what is the conversation design? It's this attempt to make machines, robots, whatever, speak like humans. For many years, these things were programmed by, no offense, very technical people who didn't have this ability to interact like screenwriters do, or playwrights or copywriters do. And so this idea of conversation design, which makes this agent that you're interacting with more palatable, easier to talk with, something like you're talking with a friend. So my question is, and I keep on asking this in this regard in the metaverse, and it's very interesting with regards to the car. Are we going to be designing these cars and these agents in the metaverse with the same conversation design principles that we're using currently? And excuse me for the mustache, it's really hot here. Are we designing these things with the same conversation design principles that we use to design things currently, current chatbots, current digital assistants, like, the cooperative principle? Is that still going to be a thing when we're designing these agents, which are meant to entertain us, which are meant to keep us company? Because for one, I find that extremely boring. If it were just talking to someone who's very agreeable, talking to Alexa is super boring, to Siri is super boring. when I go into the metaverse, I want to engage in the conversation with the companion. It's got to be much deeper, much more interesting, much more engaging, meaning they must have likes and dislikes. So my question is, do we think the conversation design principles are going to change as we're creating these characters for the car, for the schools, for healthcare, for gaming? I don't know who that question's for. That's for everyone. That's for the universe. Sorry, I should have said someone's name too. Y'all waiting for a name? Clint. That's the name.
No, I'm just the humble host here today, Jason.
Okay.
But Brandon, Smiler, I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, I think conversational design, much like conversation, is always contextual. And I think that, you know, we've done studies with different clients specifically on how do people talk to just a voice device in the car versus the home, parents versus kids, parents without kids. Like, there's so much nuanced context, and I think that it all applies there. If I pulled 20 people out of this room and we had individual conversations, the tone, the intonation, the style, the topic, all of it would be very, very different. And so I think really good conversational AI is thoughtful about those modalities. It shifts the context. It shifts whether it's pre-scripted or it's something like what InWorld is doing, really smart neural networks of creating like AI-driven conversation. And can that AI understand the context? So I feel like I'm doing the, like, I refuse to define it answers today, but I think it's all contextual, and it will be very different in the car versus a virtual world versus a video game versus in your home versus on a mobile device, and even who you're with. So that's all of our jobs, is to figure out consideration of all those potential contextual layers and designing technologies and solutions that adapt for it.
Yeah, and I would like to add, like, yeah, it is contextual, right? But yeah, okay. Yeah, so it is contextual for sure. I agree with that. But there's one more thing to it, right? Our basics of conversation does not change, like what we do when we are talking with individuals. It's the same principles, like, so when you talk about conversation design on a chatbot or a voice bot, of course, you're not able to see the other person and you don't know what's happening. There are some visual cues, of course, helping you out, but then there's nothing more than that. So basics of conversation design will still remain, the all the principles and guidelines which we talk about, maxims, and all of those things will remain, right? But what is interesting is, in addition to that, we will also start to see the gestures. We will also start to see, like, how the conversation by itself individually is different, right? Like, just talking and adding those intonations and tones and all of that thing is very important. But in addition to that, the basic things, like when I'm talking, I use my hands a lot, or maybe my expressions or gestures, or my nodding my head and things like that on both sides will become important. So it's not just about understanding the conversation based on what the user said and trying to understand the intent out of that, but it's more than that. We're also trying to understand what the user is saying based on the gestures. So making sense with all of these things together will be important. So the conversation design principles will go to the next level based on these understandings to tune the responses and how we respond. So that's exactly what we do in our normal conversation, whether we are conversing with our colleagues or family members, just based on, like, my mom used to just show me like big eyes like this, and I would know like she's angry and I'm not supposed to do, or I messed up something. So things like that would also, so the basic cues of conversation will also come into play.
Yeah, those are really good points. So adding on to that, Shamala, what's your thought on virtual influencers and the role that they could potentially play in this, both within the metaverse, you know, social media and beyond, kiosks, things of that nature? How do you see them tying into what we're talking about today?
It will make their job much easier, right? Like right now, it's so much effort for virtual influencers to do what they are doing. So, for example, promoting a brand or keeping up with their brand or whatever they are trying to do, right? For example, we have virtual influencers we partner with who can promote our products during the conferences, or who can use a product and then give feedback on those things. So things like that will still be there, but the it will become much more easier for them. Like I just have an avatar. I have Cloud Engine where I can create my own avatar. I can select the voice and all of those things. All I have to do is bring in the content and do it. Right now, it's so much effort for someone to record the videos and come up with the content and then try to record and re-record and do all those things. Think about it. Like you have this entire power of leveraging all the capabilities, not just the 3D avatar, not just the speech AI technologies, but we are also talking about technologies like AR, VR. We are talking about all of these things together, which can do a lot more. So if vendors are using it for brand promotion, so it would not just be like, I'm promoting this brand, hey, this is my product. Maybe they can give you a 3D tour to that place. So, it can open up a lot more opportunities for creativity as well for these influencers.
Great points. Brandon, over to you. I saw your recent appearance on the Synthedia conference from Brett Kinsella, and during that you shared a synthetic character reading an essay that was written by GPT-3 about the Luddites. As AI tools for writing and graphic design and even video production we're starting to see now are becoming available, what role do you see that playing in conversation design and design technical roles in general? Do you think this could potentially be a concern, or do you think this could actually lead to new opportunities and collaborations?
Yeah, I think the research that I did for that panel was really interesting. It's like our fears of technology are often not unfounded, but are often like our fears are more excessive than the reality of like the impact it's going to make. And so what I mean by that is, yeah, I think AI-driven creative tools will shift potentially the type of work we do. I mean, I was able to write that panel intro in under 2 minutes of creative direction. It would have taken me a couple days to get that all done, in the olden days of 4 weeks ago. And so the ability to do that doesn't mean it replaces the fact that I might want to do that holistically myself sometimes, but sometimes I might be in a rush and I need to get it done, and it could be a good kickstart. When I started the company, this type of discussion of bots replacing humans has been going on for literally like over a decade, maybe decades. And we're still here, we're still working, but the tools shift. And there's an old data point that I used to use in talks and I love, which is there was a medical AI, and they did this study that, if a medical AI was using computer vision to scan for cancer cells, it was like 95% accurate. And then a doctor, if they were looking manually at tests, they were like 97, 98% accurate. But when an AI worked with a doctor, it was like 99.9999999% accurate, right? Because the AI leapt forward and eliminated a lot of the heavy lifting. The doctor was able to use their human skills. And so I view this as a collaboration. It's not that we're going to be replaced. I think people will learn to adapt and leverage these as tools in the same way. If I wanted to paint something, I used to have to use a paintbrush, and now I can use a computer. And in the future, I can use Midjourney to start that. And so I think that people that adapt and learn to use these new tools will be very successful. The people that say, I don't want to hear about it, this is bad, you can keep using your other tools and still be successful. But I view it as a really powerful collaborative tool for us. That's what I have to say about that. A lot more. I can go on for like hours about this, but I'll stop.
For sure. I'm sure we all can. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I find it to be a really great collaborative process. Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
I want to go back to the virtual influencer thing, because I think there's some questions in the chat here, if that's cool, because I really am passionate about this virtual influencer thing, and I think that there's a big opportunity here, and really the sky's the limit here. So there's this thing, I don't know if y'all heard about Lil Miquela. Y'all follow Lil Miquela? She's got like 1 billion followers on Instagram. She's a virtual influencer. She's not conversational AI, meaning there's no any kind of a chat bot or anything behind it. It's just people writing it, but the idea is fabulous, and I think Mitsuku Cookie, the world's best chatbot, was actually experimenting with this and going on to places like Roblox, and on Roblox engaging with people in the metaverse, which was the first time I had seen conversational AI really in a social way in the metaverse. And so what I think here, and going back to what I was saying earlier, is I designed Anna the companionship bot, and one of the things that I didn't I didn't follow were the conversation design principles of cooperative principles and trying to help the person, because those things are great for digital assistants. But in this world of virtual influencers who have their own opinions and have their own internal lives and likes and dislikes, it's really hard to stick by that of always trying to provide the person with the right amount of information. And sometimes they just say whatever they want to say, and that's okay. If you talk to Cookie a bit, you'll realize that she does that all the time, and it's amazing, and that's what brings people back, and that's why people want to talk to these types of characters. And so I don't really know where I was going with any of this, just another one of my rants, but the idea is that these virtual influencers, they can do more than just write a copy for your brand, or more than just do a video like Synthesia does. These things can have a world of their own, get a following, release music, have their own lives in a way. And I think that's, to me, the science fiction part of that is what's exciting to me, are these characters that live in the metaverse that are unpredictable and surprising. Surprising is the keyword here. I think that not enough people, when they're creating agents, have this element of surprise, of this, whenever LEQ, the robot that I write for, whenever she says something that surprises me, it's just like an aha moment. And I think that if more people experience those aha moments when they're talking to conversational AI and agents and virtual influencers, we'll have much higher adoption in the metaverse and in just of chatbots in general and AI in general. So that's my rant. I don't know what the question was. Was there a question? Was there a question, Clint?
It doesn't matter. It's drifting off in the metaverse now. Who knows? Shamaila, would you like to add any? Oh my goodness, there he is, the real man himself. Shamaila, would you like to add anything about the AI tools, playing a role in writing and design and even video production going forward?
Yes, definitely right. So while all of these things are coming together, people would want to create their own AI avatars, right? So for example, we have a customer who wanted to actually create custom voices for their entire call center agent pipeline. So 300 plus call center agents, and they wanted a different voice for each of those. And they were like, how can we do that? So there are tools available where you can create custom voices using your couple of minutes of audio. You can create a no code, low code kind of custom voice. You're able to tune. There are tuning tools available out there, right? But now imagine if someone needs to create a 300 call center agent voices, they would not rely on a service provider and say like, hey, you do that for me. It's $1 million thing. So they want more efficiency. They want something which they can do it. So that's where more AI tools will come into play, where these companies can leverage the power of tools, create things by themselves with low code, no code approach, where they don't have to know the background of Python or know how to run something in command line and all of those kind of things. And the power will increase there, right? So definitely those tools are important and will start making sense. But at the same time, as we are starting to talk about all of these conversational design guidelines or conversation design in general, to Brandon's point, like there will be also more of natural language or generating the content piece. There are large language models available, which is able to do that now. You are able to create blog posts. You are able to, and I was just reading yesterday, like, in I think one of the colleges, students are writing notes using these large language models or the natural language processing tools, and it is being graded by an AI system as well. So, of course, AI is being used a lot in a lot of places, but for content generation, it will start happening. For avatar generation, AI tools will come into play where you don't have to know a lot of things. You can just upload an image and it can create an avatar for you. And then all you have to do is you're able to give it your gestures and all the different human touch to it. So things will become easy. There will be more and more opportunities, and there will be more, I think, capabilities which needs to be built. So definitely there's a lot of opportunity for AI in general. But again, bringing in like gestures, bringing in the different kind of understandings. So there's endless possibilities. And AI tools will play a major role, not only in creation of these, but also in customization of these things. Like I was saying, right? You have created an avatar, but now you want to give it the look and feel, and you want to give it all of the body cues, or like a real human. Like if it was my avatar, it should look and feel and talk and walk and do everything like me. So there will be customizations, and there will be more and more data needed, or more and more learning capabilities or customization capabilities, which will be required as well. And the same thing on the speech recognition side, the same thing on the AR/VR side. So there's a lot of, I would say, opportunities. It's not going to, of course, kill jobs for people. It's going to bring more opportunities.
Yeah, well said. I'm of the same opinion. I think it's going to kind of democratize creativity in a sense that some people who either don't have the background or maybe didn't have the confidence to get into some of those creative worlds before, maybe they'll give it a shot now. Oliver?
Oh, sorry, I was just sending a heart to what Shamila just said. That's all.
Good stuff. What do you think, Oliver? Should we move into the questions from the viewers? We got a ton of amazing ones, so I'd love to get through as many as we can.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the rapid fire questions. How about I start off, or do you want to do the ones from the in chat first?
No, let's do the ones we have written out already. That's good, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, sounds good. So I'll start with you, Shamila. So first question is from Colette Ellis. How would you bring an existing chatbot into the metaverse?
So that's an interesting question, right? So already you have created a personality when you are creating a chatbot. So that part is taken care of. You have already thought about how your chatbot would interact. So you might have created some dialogue principles or conversational components. Like, okay, my bot is friendly, my bot is helpful, or whatever the traits you might have already defined when you are creating a chatbot. So it's not that out of the blue you will come and you'll be like, I'll just start writing dialogue and then figure out. Because I keep pushing this thing, your voice assistant or your bot is your brand ambassador, and I still stick to that point. Like, it is your brand ambassador. So you're thinking about it. What becomes easier is because some of the part you have already done. Now comes the part like, okay, how does it look? How does it walk, or how does it feel? Like, giving it gestures. You might have given some gestures, of course, in the sense that the visual cues which we have given to Alexa or the Google assistants, right? That will change. That will change to like how a human gesture would be. So the existing chatbot would become the backbone of creating this metaverse world for us.
Right on. That's a lot. Yeah, those are some really great thoughts. And we have another one from Mireille Abea. What are the best practices for conversation design of a fictional character?
That's an interesting one. And Jason is the right person to talk more about it. But let me just talk about it high level. Like, yeah, the conversation design principles, like we are talking about all the different maxims, right? Will still remain the same. Like when you are designing, you have to stick by those rules, right? Like you need to make sure the bot is giving the right information. You need to make sure that the bot is being honest or transparent about how it is getting the information. All of those things, but also the turn taking and all of the principles which we already are designing, keeping in mind, will stick. But as we start to think about designing with the avatar, it is really important to start thinking like it's not just the dialogue system. Dialogue system is very easy. Like, conversations can vary based on different places, but it's easy for us to put things in a word which can be very generic in nature. And so, for example, you and I are talking, if you understand English, you're understanding everything I'm saying, however I'm putting that. But it becomes very sensitive when you put it in an avatar format, especially when you have gestures, which is completely different in different cultures. So for example, nodding in one culture may mean something completely different than nodding in another culture. Like for me, it's like when I'm nodding, I'm like, yes, I'm listening to you. and I understand what you are saying. And but for the other person, it could completely be like, no, I just don't like what you are saying. So those are where the nuances would be, where we have to start thinking about creating common guidelines and principles. And that is something which will be interesting to start thinking about. Like, that is something which has not yet been defined, because we have not come to that problem, but it will very soon come. Like, for example, these AI avatars, they are so rich in gestures. They will be doing yes when I'm listening, or they'll be doing like, okay, I got it, or the eye expressions and all of that thing is something we have to start thinking about. It's not just about the dialogues or the conversation principles, but adding on to it, these different principles will also be important.
Those are some great points. And last couple of questions, and then we'll move on to Brandon's questions. Next question is from Chidi Akurunwa. How does the metaverse change conversation design? And then one after that is from Giancarlo Hernandez. What are the biggest challenges for conversational experiences in this new platform?
Yeah, so the first one, like, how does it change the conversation design? It does not change anything in terms of the conversation design. It just makes the conversation design much more richer. That's it. Like I was talking, like when you're talking with Alex or when you're talking with these chatbots, they feel very monotone kind of thing. Or even if they have a personality or you are interacting with them, there is no social connection to it. Or going back to what I call the emotional engagement part to it, right? Like the title of my book. Of course, that part is missing, because no matter what you try, it's just a dry conversation happening in a 2D environment. But Metaverse will open up this 3D environment where it will feel pretty much like talking with a real human in the real environment, or in an environment which is much more comfortable. So for example, I just started coming to office because now I got so tired, sick and tired of just doing this virtual meetings, and I was like, I'm done. I want to see real human. I want to see and I want to talk with real humans, right? So the same thing will start happening. Like, people will want not just to talk with chatbots or with voice bots, but they will want to actually interact with, which was a creepy experience. Like when we were working at Ford and thinking about avatars back then, people were like, this is creepy. I cannot imagine myself talking to an avatar which has like entire human-like features. But that is changing now. People are expecting that in the coming future, as we are seeing the avatars are coming up and all of that. So it's not going to change a lot. It's going to enhance the experience, make it richer.
Okay, got it. Yeah, a lot.
And challenges, and the challenges are tons of challenges will be there, like I mentioned, because we are talking about a different kind of experience right now. When we talk about speech recognition, or we talk about like the digital assistant, there are challenges with biases. We are talking about inclusivity challenges. We are talking about challenges with people who have speech disabilities or things like that, right? Those challenges will be there. There will be like thinking about it, but in addition to that, there will be also challenges to be thinking about in explainable AI and responsible AI, as you open it up for so many people and AI is doing so much. So definitely a lot of challenges will be ahead of us, which we start thinking about.
Really, really great points. Thank you, Shamila. One last question just from the audience. How do you think we can address AI plagiarism, taking source material from artists without attribution?
That's a difficult one because, plagiarism exists. I think we will have to leverage AI to protect and prevent AI, right? It's just that there has to be something in place which is able to see which is able to detect and say like, this is original content or this is some copied from somewhere. So exactly like what Grammarly does, like every time I'm writing something, I just run it through the plagiarism tool just to see if something like this already exists, or if exactly it feels like I copied something from somewhere, just to ensure. So there are tools available already out there in colleges and universities where they are already doing it to check if students are just reusing existing content, or are they creating original content and things like that. So using the same power and leveraging the same capabilities, we will have to start thinking about creating more and more tools to see the originality of the content. So AI is going to help protect and save the plagiarism eventually.
Great, thank you for that. Jason and Brandon, do you have thoughts you want to add to what Shamila just said?
I would love to hear from Brandon. I haven't heard enough from Brandon. I feel like I want to hear more from Brandon. Unless you don't want to answer the specific question, and I'll answer it.
No, I think she answered it very well. I think it's very difficult. Like there's going to be once you really start powering conversation with true AI, and it's feeding, AI really isn't generating anything brand new. It's feeding off of everything that existed before. Every bit of AI, anything it produces, is stealing a little bit from something that's learned in the past. And so it's all in some capacity stolen. So I don't have an answer for how we're going to regulate that and control that. And I'm glad I'm not responsible for it, because that's a daunting task. It's big, but yeah, every bit of AI is a little bit of a theft that gets combined into some new version of it. It's a wild conversation, worth like a whole panel, I would say.
I totally agree with you on that one, Brandon. I mean, there is so much. I just read recently that there's a big controversy over the OpenAI winning an art competition using a prompt. So, I mean, it's taking all of this artwork, it's relying on all the artwork and hard work of thousands and millions of artists over thousands of years, and just reducing it into an app that you can just go in there and just steal. Same thing for copywriting, by the way, and novel writing, and all these art forms, which we hold to be so high, are just being reduced and compressed. And I sound like a Luddite when I say this, but it's crazy when you think about how all this hard work and all these people's life work is being basically taken by DALL-E 2. So it's a serious question. And it's one of those questions that we as a community really aren't addressing. And it's amazing to me how this thing is sort of going under the radar, and we're all like, hey, this is great. Look, I can make an elephant that's riding a camel in space while eating a taco, which is great. It's funny. I love that kind of stuff. I make that stuff all the time, but there is serious ethical issues here, and we need to start talking about them. Maybe not in this conversation. I don't think we have that much time left, but sounds like a good topic.
Definitely a valid point, though. Yeah, I believe there's an AI-generated film winning on the film festival circuit right now as well. So to your point, Brandon, if we get back to you, getting into more of some specific use cases than that, Masha Gorm-Prez has asked, what are your thoughts about the metaverse within industrial and manufacturing context?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think NVIDIA is doing some really exciting work in that space. And why I think it's important to talk about these other use cases is, even on this, like when you talk about the metaverse, people have a tendency to we default into avatars because it's the most exciting thing. It looks compelling. It's as closest to what we're doing. And for anyone on this webinar event that is in the business of being about this business, one of the worst things that we can do is over niche and over rotate on like one very small specific thing. Like Michaela, the avatar, really cool. She's not really conversational yet. She has, several million followers on Instagram. That's great. But what's the real engagement level? So sometimes like the inside baseball excitement about a piece of the industry isn't as great as the actual use of the technology. Whereas when you look at utilities like manufacturing and logistics, it's not as exciting, but sometimes it's used at much greater scale. And so while this community is having a really fun time thinking about conversational avatars and conversational metaverse, there's people that are designing these like conversational AI-driven logistics manufacturing environments, digital twins that link back to a physical manufacturing facility. And I mean, billions of dollars being spent on it. So it's a massive enterprise opportunity and likely to be used at more scale than the other like fun stuff we're working on. It's not an area that we're hyper focused on, but it's massive and important.
Yeah, absolutely. If kind of going off of that, João Alcaraz has asked, what opportunities do you think third-party voice app developers will have within this world, within the metaverse opportunities?
It's so huge. There's a lot of people, I recognize a lot of names and faces from Voice Summit last week in DC. It was a really great event. And what I was telling everyone that got me so excited about that event, other than having everyone back together again in person, was if you go back to the first Voice Summit, which was in New Jersey in 2019, there was essentially two conversations. Are you building an Alexa skill, or are you building a Google Assistant action, right? And that was it. Which are you doing both? Are you doing one? Do you think one's better than the other? And there were a couple vendors doing some other exciting things. This event was the complete inverse. It was like, yeah, Alexa's cool, and there's a whole ecosystem there. Google's kind of like left the building for a little bit, but there's this whole ecosystem of other voice activated web and cars and mobile and spaces and physical and virtual. And so I go, this is amazing, because there's all these new emerging channels that are going to require a conversational user interface. And so there's two sides that people can work on. Number one is building conversational AI into these virtual worlds. Companies like Speechly are working with like game companies to include conversational AI in those worlds. And then once that functionality exists, somebody needs to write it, and someone needs to make it, someone had to design a stop sign in the physical world for us to know how to use it correctly. And so the tech has to get installed, and then it has to be designed in a really good way. And so whichever camp you may fall in, you want to be a part of the installation, or you want to be a part of the creative nuancing of it. There's a huge opportunity across essentially every touch point that we're calling the metaverse, whatever you're calling that.
Sure. So playing off of what Brandon's saying about writing, Jason, Amy Stapleton has asked, how can we make characters driven by generative text more engaging and more interesting?
Well, that's a great question, Amy. First of all, congratulations to Amy. Amy just won the Alexa prize at the hackathon at Voice 22, and it's an amazing, amazing achievement. And it's a great question, because it's really like the holy grail. Like, how do we get these? If I understand the question correctly, Amy, it's like, how do we get these OpenAI GPT-3 to act and behave nicely so that it can, I can put it into my chatbot robot as a like small talk, and it can generate conversations, or in your case, Enchantables making these characters and these worlds and stuff like that, kind of like what Clint is doing over there with InWorld. And so it's a great question. And it's a struggle for me, because like, how, this is like my area, this is like my milieu, making characters, making things, like, how do you do it, man? And the answer is, okay, so I figured it out. I boiled it down. What you need to do is, there's one use case that works. And the use case that works is, it's an alien that comes to Earth, and all it knows is what it read on Reddit. It learned everything it knows from Reddit, and then it's perfect. And then the Open GPT is answer everything perfectly. But that's not the real case. I mean, you look at like, whatever application you need for it. Can you imagine, let's say, Sujin brought up in the chat here, education, like educational purposes, like teachers in the metaverse. Can you imagine something as unpredictable as GPT-3 teaching kids something? I mean, it's like, wow, I wouldn't want my kids, either one of them, and I'm a terrible teacher, but I wouldn't want them with the GPT-3. So it's a really good question. How do we then still take this large language model that is sort of a black box, and sort of put enough filters and parameters on it so that it kind of behaves in a way that's predictable, and that is, and the answer is a lot of money, I guess. And I think that's really the only way to do it, is if you pour a lot of money into this thing, you can create enough filters, enough data points to be able to, enough data scientists too working on it to do that. Alternatively, you can do is reduce the use case, maybe make it very specific. Maybe it only says I'm Groot. I don't know, maybe that would work. So those are two different, and I know I'm being kind of facetious, but like the idea is here that it's very unpredictable, and it's hard to take that and to turn that into something that you can then control and say, okay, well, I don't want this to be a Tay situation where it just goes off, I mean, you could do some filters on profanity and stuff like that. But there's really no, and just as an anecdotal thing, we actually tested an LEQ. We wanted to give her this kind of like very broad conversational ability, just so if people just wanted to have a conversation, just, unending conversation, how could we handle that? And so we tested GPT-3, we tested something called Atomic, and we tested Mitsuku. We took, my friend Steve Worswick gave us Cookie AI so that we could test all three of them with the same inputs. And what we found, Amy, was actually remarkable, was that the rule-based chatbot that was built in 2001 using handwritten rules was still the best of all three in terms of answering every single question and being funny and being on topic and being contextual. So I guess the answer to your question is just use AIML, or just use regex and just make characters that way.
Amazing. We'll keep that in mind. Olivera, what do you think? You want to wrap stuff up?
Yes, sure. We're pretty close to the end. So I know we didn't address all the questions, but I hope with all the different input that everyone got a lot out of this session. And thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. Let's see if we can answer one final question. Okay, let's see. How about, can you discuss how ethics influences our choices of conversation design in the metaverse?
Oh, I want to jump on this one unless someone else wants this. Brandon, I'm just going to say this is a huge issue.
No, you can jump. Yeah.
Thank you, Shamal. This is a huge issue, everyone, and we're not even addressing this thing. This is huge. Who is looking at this data? Who's accessing this data? Let's take a situation where a caretaker, right? You have an agent in someone's home and that person confides in their caretaker agent AI that they want to kill themselves. What does that agent do? Does that agent then tell, or are the people reading the conversation? Are they gonna then, they tell the parents? What's the ethics here? So there's so many unanswered questions. I'm not even getting into the ethics of designing conversations in the real world for chatbots that are still, there's huge biases in terms of the people designing the conversations, in terms of like the nature of the conversation designers, which is improving over the years, but there's so much work that needs to be done. And we're, as conversation designers, most of us, it falls on us. We need to be, we can't just rely on product managers and be like, it's their problem. No, it's actually, we need to be considerate when we're proposing flows and designs. We need to be aware of our own biases, and we need to be aware of how this can be manipulated, who our audience is, are they a vulnerable population? So that's, again, this is me talking for an hour. I can go on for an hour about this, but I'm gonna stop here unless someone else wants to.
Last thoughts from anyone else on the topic before we wrap up?
My last note is just.
My favorite topic. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No. I was just saying, like, Jason was bringing up a really good point about ethics, right? Like the data and all of those things, but there's other part of the ethics which we have to start thinking about. Like, are we getting into, like, while we are designing for this futuristic world and thinking about the metaverse and all the cool use cases, are we also thinking about how it will impact all of the people? Are we thinking about the universal design principle? Or are we thinking about inclusivity? All of those things will also become ethical issues which we have to start talking about, because we should not be in the same situation like we were with voice assistants, where we started seeing a lot of biases stemming out of what we thought was the vision. So definitely something to think about.
Thanks, Shamila. Well, Brandon, you were going to add one last thing, and then we're going to thank everybody for joining. Last thoughts, Brandon?
I think that was an important note to end on, but there's never been a more exciting time to be a conversational designer. There's never been more platforms and ecosystems and tools to play with. So everyone here is in the right place, and keep building wildly exploratory things, and we're all going to do great.
Thank you, Brandon. Thanks to all the speakers, Shamila, Jason, Brandon, for all your contributions, Clint as well, and everybody's questions and comments in the chat. Super appreciate it. And we look forward to having another one of these metaverse type events in the future. And this is our last event for this year. So we thank everybody in the Conversational Collective community for joining and for being part of these events. We'll keep it going in the next year. Any final thoughts, Clint?
No, this has been amazing. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you in the metaverse.